Hi, hopefully you can hear me now. My name is Alyssa. I will be your host for today. Welcome, and we're going to be recording the webinar so we can post it for future viewing. We're going to turn attendee cameras off until after the Q&A, and then we will have a quick chance for us to take a group photo. So Climate Justice Durham, a bit about Climate Justice Durham. We are a multi-generational group of volunteers advocating for effective, equitable climate action. To address the climate crisis, we're advocating for better government policy at all levels, improving community awareness and understanding of climate change, and urging our governments to build community capacity and resilience. We aim to reduce the severity of this crisis, ensure we're all ready for its impacts, and create a healthier, more sustainable future for us all. We started in 2019 as Fridays for Future Whitby, but soon we were active in neighboring municipalities, so in 2021 we became Climate Justice Durham. Since then, we've organized and participated in events like community cleanups, fundraisers, protests, local candidate debates, awareness and education events, and delegations to legislative bodies. In 2025, we launched our Learning Circle webinars, helping folks learn and connect with the smart, caring people doing work on climate justice. So we are so excited to celebrate Earth Day 2026 with our 6th Learning Circle this evening. And our partners for this presentation include Little Forests Durham, Green Communities Canada, and the Whitby Sustainability Advisory Committee. We all know that the critical role that trees and forests play in helping to sustain our planet, trapping carbon, cleaning the air, retaining water and soils, protecting habitat for wildlife, keeping our neighborhoods cooler in the summer, and supporting our mental and physical health. So Little Forests Durham is demonstrating how we can work together to achieve these benefits almost anywhere, including small cities and towns and that only have limited spaces. So tonight's presentation is a great fit with CJD's goal in providing practical, factual information, educating our community, and equipping everyone for action. So we hope that what you hear tonight will leave you inspired and empowered to make change. And if this is your first time participating in a CJD event, please let us know in the chat how you heard about it, and we're so happy that you could join. So now we'll move on to our land acknowledgement. Climate Justice Durham, Little Forests Durham, and the Whitby Sustainability Advisory Committee are active on the lands that the Mississauga and Anishinaabe inhabited thousands of years prior to European colonization. These lands are the ancestral and treaty territory of the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake First Nation, Hiawatha First Nation, Alderville First Nation, the Chippewas of Beausoleil First Nation, the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We strive to learn from the past, recognize the damage of colonization, and work at meaningful reconciliation. We honor and respect these nations as rights holders and thank them for their ongoing care of these lands and waters. We also are grateful for their willingness to share their knowledge to help us rebuild our connection to all our relations in the natural world and with this land. So just a few ground rules before we get started. We ask that you be respectful and considerate of others. Please put your questions in the chat and give a little like reaction to questions that others that have asked that you feel are really good and want to see answered. Trevor, our event and manager question fielder tonight, will keep us on time and take note of the questions as they come in, queuing them up for response by our amazing panelists. So make sure you are keeping those questions coming so that we have lots to ask Ingrid and Jenn. Speaking of our lovely speakers today, we are so happy to welcome Ingrid Janssen and Jenn McCallum. Ingrid is a director at Little Forests Durham, which is a newish nonprofit group in Durham Region. Their focus is on planting mini forests and urban parks and other public spaces around Durham. They're building on the science and methods developed in other countries and communities to bring similar benefits to our region. The group has already helped to plant 4 of these mighty mini forests. And we also have Jenn McCallum, who is the Green Infrastructure Programs Lead at Green Communities Canada. She is based in Nogojiwanong, also known as Peterborough, Ontario. She leads the monthly Mini Forest Community of Practice, which covers the how-to aspects of creating a mini forest, such as site prep, installation, maintenance, and monitoring. So we have lots of knowledge and practical experience in these 2 speakers. Welcome, Ingrid and Jenn. Everyone give a round of applause as we welcome our lovely speakers.
Thank you, thank you. Good to be here. All right, so thank you for that great introduction, Alyssa. I am one of the directors of Little Forests Durham. And we are relatively new. We were founded in 2024, and we've been partnering with community groups, with municipalities um, around Durham Region to plant what are also known as Miyawaki mini forests. We call them little forests, and they can be really, really tiny, or they could be much, much bigger. So I'm excited to talk to you this evening about little forests and about the work that we're doing here in Durham Region. So we're very much a group that we're kind of thinking globally, but acting locally. So this is a quote I like to begin with. Hannah Lewis is I think she's an environmental, I don't have her actual degree, environmentalist, ecologist. She lived in France for a while because her partner is a marine biologist, and she got involved with the mini forest movement in France. And as a result of what she learned there, she wrote a fabulous book called Mini Forest Revolution. I recommend it to everyone. If it isn't in your library, we should make them put it in the library. And I love this quote because the most important word in here is community. And so a natural forest is a community. It's a bunch of coexisting, interacting organisms, everything from, what is active in the soil, in the rhizosphere, to, animals and humans who are all equal members of that community. And we rely on one another for food. I also like to remind people that trees are the lungs of the planet. They produce the oxygen that we breathe. So it's important for us to remember that, we are very reliant on trees as well, not just insects and animals. And of course, our indigenous relatives call trees the elders because they were here before we were here, and they will be here after we are here. Here it is. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is often called the Miyawaki method. And the reason for that is the methodology was developed by a Japanese botanist by the name of Dr. Akira Miyawaki. After doing studies about the forests of Japan, and a lot of Japan had been deforested, he started studying ways that they could regenerate the natural forests of Japan, and was collected seeds, started growing native seedlings, and through a process of trial and error, really developed this methodology. And I'll talk in a little bit more detail as we get into the slides and discuss some of the projects that we've done. But it's really about taking native plants. He has a term that he used, potential natural vegetation. So discovering what would have grown on that site before it was cleared, and also doing some work on the soil, and then restoring the native plant community that would have been there. And he planted trees until very late in his life. I think he passed away in 2022. I think he was in his 90s, and I think in his late 80s, he was still working on mini forest projects, and he was still planting trees. I like to say to people, almost anybody can plant a tree. So here's, hang on, sorry. Here's a photo of one of the Japanese temples in Japan. And that's where a lot of the native trees existed, around temples, because they did not cut the trees around the temples down. This particular laneway that led to the temple had to have there were cedar trees planted there. They had to be removed because there was some major highway development going on. And you can see in this photo, the same shot taken, I don't think it's more than 10 or maybe 12 years later. And you can see how much that dense planting has grown in along that particular walkway. This is one of the last projects that I think Dr. Miyawaki was involved in before his death. This is Millennium Hope Hill. So this is the area that was absolutely devastated by the tsunami in 2011. And as Dr. Miyawaki had said, it was the removal of the natural forests along the coastline that really allowed that wave of water to penetrate deep inland, kill so many people, and do so much damage. So, one of the projects that they launched as a result is this Millennium Hope Hills project. And they've created, I think, something like 14 of these mounds. And the mounds are created using all of the detritus that they had left after the tsunami. So they piled it all up, they've covered it with grass. And as you can see, around it, there are areas that have been planted, and there are a significant number of mini forest projects. I don't have the number here with me in terms of the number of trees, but I think it's over 100,000 trees were planted in these various mini forest projects around us. There's also a memorial there as a way to remember the tsunami victims, and of course, for people to come and visit this park and to watch as it develops, but to also remember, the terrible power of nature and the planet that we live on. Okay, so what is a little forest? A little forest is actually a forest. It's just in miniature. So it has the same components that a mature forest would have. It has a canopy layer, it has a tree layer, a subtree or a subcanopy, or an understory and a shrub layer. So depending on which ones, who you read, which kind of forestry interpretations, you can have 4 layers, you can have 5 layers. Some people simplify it down to 3, but it is all the layers of a forest. And through natural forest succession, these layers develop. So initially you would get shrubs that would come in, then there would be some pioneer trees, and eventually they would create enough shade that you would get shade-loving, what we call climax trees like maples and oaks growing, and eventually they form the canopy of the forest. And then all of the other trees and shrubs kind of find their niche. Some trees we know, we call them understory trees because they grow well in the shade of large canopy trees. Pagoda dogwoods are a great example of that. And there are shrubs that also do well in a shaded woodland as opposed to, growing out in full sun. Okay. So any forest offers us a whole range of reasons to, number one, keep the forests that we have, but number two, also to try and restore and plant forests. There are a whole host of services that forests provide us, not just single trees, but forests. Of course, we know that they offer habitat. And one of the things that we really want to try and encourage as we plant the mini forests around Durham Region is to have people start monitoring stuff over time. We're going to get to this over time to see how we have increased biodiversity in that particular region. Because of course that would be one of the really big benefits, is that we're able to take an area that is, turf grass and provide a whole habitat for various creatures, from insects, up to birds and mammals. Another really important reason for planting trees, because we've had a lot of problems with this, because we have had some very large rainfalls in the last few years, and that's part of climate change, but they actually help to intercept rainfall. Because the roots go fairly deep, because there's a thick duff layer. The rain does not run off like it does on turf grass. It actually penetrates into the ground, which helps to reduce flooding. And of course, in a lot of neighborhoods, that's still in different urban communities, it's still a very real risk that when the storm sewers overflow, that there is going to be flooding. counters climate change. I mean, trees store carbon. So we know that if we want to sequester more carbon from the atmosphere, we need to plant more trees. And planting forests is a great way to do that. So I'm going to just talk a little bit more in detail about, on this particular chart, about what the Miyawaki method is that Dr. Miyawaki perfected. In the areas, he started working with Japanese corporations actually very early on. I think it was Toyota was one of the first ones. It was another one was a steel company who wanted to plant trees on their property. And of course, one of the first things they had to do was survey the soil. A lot of the places in Japan, on the Asian continent as well, and not so much maybe some places in Europe, but depending on where they are, the soil is heavily degraded. And so they need to do a number of serious steps on soil engineering. We're fortunate here in Durham Region. So far, we haven't had to work with planting in an area that is very heavily degraded, but so soil survey is the first step. And typically what we are doing in our group is just go, dig into the soil, and we're looking to see, is the soil very heavily clay? Is it, is the water percolating effectively? That we don't have a perched water table. But other than that, we're not really doing much more with the soil. As I mentioned before, potential natural vegetation species survey. We're very fortunate here in Canada. Agriculture Canada has a great list of native trees and shrubs that occur in our ecozone. We know that we live in the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Forest region. We have the list of the trees and the shrubs. And so, we have a starting list that we can go to. We are also now doing something that we call assisted migration, which is looking at the next forest to us, which is called the deciduous forest zone. Some people also call it the Carolinian forest zone. And it has some slightly different trees than we have here. And we're thinking that as, of course, climate changes and our heat events in the summer become more frequent, that we may need to change the mix of trees that we're actually planting in our mini forest. And so we're bringing in some trees from a zone that is further south than we are. If we're in zone 6 here in southern Durham region, and maybe 5B, a little to the north of us, we're looking at trees from, say, zone 7 or 6B. Soil engineering is fairly simple. We're using a standard lasagna method in the forests that we're doing. So we collect cardboard. We're laying cardboard down. Usually it's a turf grass. Several of the sites that we've done so far have just been turf grass. I think Heber Down was a field, kind of like a meadow area with a lot of perennial native plants in it, but we just had them mow it down. Then we bring in cardboard, we lay that down, and we water the cardboard thoroughly, so it is not, in fact, wicking moisture out of the soil. The cardboard acts as a barrier for the seed bank in the soil, plus hopefully the weeds that are currently there. And then we put a thick layer, 15 to 20 centimeters of mulch on top of, compost on top of that. And then on top of that, we put another equivalent layer of mulch, which is typically wood chips that we can get from arborists or the forestry departments of the municipalities that we're working with. So that's site preparation. And we do this, the preference is to do this 4 to 6 months ahead of time. And so we really want to make sure that we start to change the composition of the soil. Because if you're planting trees into turf grass, trees need a lot of microbials. They need a lot of fungal mycorrhiza in the soil. And turf grass does not encourage the growth of fungi. It encourages the growth of bacteria because as you're cutting the grass, you're increasing the nitrogen level, and bacteria feed very quickly on the nitrogen. Fungi need organic matter. And so what we're doing by layering all of this organic matter is that we're kick-starting the process of encouraging the growth of the fungi in the soil. If anyone has read the book Finding the Mother Tree by Dr. Suzanne Simard from the University of British Columbia, you'll know how important those mycorrhizal networks, I'm screwing it up tonight, are to trees. So the thought is, by doing this 4 to 6 months ahead of time, we're starting to encourage that fungal network to develop in the soil. Then we come in 4 to 6 months later, and we plant 3 plants per square meter. So if we're doing a typical size of a mini forest is 200 square meters, size of a tennis court. And if we're planting 200 square meters, we're ordering 600 trees and shrubs. And we've used a methodology of just laying out a grid using some twine and some pegs, laying out 1 by 1 meter grids so that we can place the trees and the shrubs in those 1 meter squares, and then the volunteers can come in and plant them. At that point, your forest is planted, and it's simply a case of doing some maintenance. And the maintenance, according to Dr. Miyawaki's method, is really only required for 2 to 3 years. And then the forest becomes self-sustaining. And of course, the theory is that you can reduce the time. It can take 100 to 200 years for the normal forest succession to happen. But by planting the climax species and planting them densely in this way, we're shortening that to about 20 to 30 years. Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about who we are. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're a new nonprofit. We're all volunteers. And the core of the group came from my Master Gardener group. So I'm a member of the Durham Master Gardeners, as are 5 of my team members. And we've had a new member join us who's been there for every planting since the beginning. So she was the perfect fit to come and join our team. And we set ourselves a fairly aspirational goal at the beginning in 2024, which was to plant 30 little forests in neighborhoods, community parks, and city or town halls in Durham Region by 2030. And as Alyssa mentioned in my introduction, so far we've done 4. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the ones that we've got planned for this year. So here's what we've done so far. So our first little forest was in Uxbridge. We did the site prep there in July, and then did the planting in November of 2024, I want to say. So here, this is what I mean about community. What's incredible is when you put a call out for volunteers to come out and help prep for a mini forest, we were happily surprised when we had about 85 volunteers come out to help with the site preparation. This is a Saturday morning in July in Uxbridge. There's about 30 yards of compost to get layered on top of that cardboard, and another 30 yards of wood chips to go on top of that. And let me tell you, it was done in record time. I think we were done before 11 o'clock. We started at 9 and we were done by 11. It was pretty amazing. Here's the actual planting day in November. You can sort of see in the one photo, you can sort of see the twine running through where we've laid out the grid. And to make it easy for the volunteers, the Little Forests team with whoever we're partnering with, in this case, it was the Rotary Club in Uxbridge, we laid all the plants out ahead of time just to make sure that we're not planting too many of the same species together. It's still random, but we had a little bit of methodology that we did. Same thing, we had about 80 people show up, and the planting was done in an hour and a half, 600 trees and shrubs. It was amazing. One of the things we do is to install a permanent sign. This is the first sign that we did for the Uxbridge Mini Forest project. For people, it's at the fields of Uxbridge. So of course it's a soccer field. So there's lots of people, and people walk their dogs in this area. So it's providing education. It's letting people know what a mini forest is. And it's also recognizing at the bottom, you can see all of the partners who participated in that particular project. And we put fence up because we wanted to make sure that for the first 2 years anyway, that we keep as many herbivores out as we could. Rabbits, deer, whatever happened to wander by. So here's that forest that we planted that fall in June of 2025. All the trees had leafed out. You can see we wrapped them and they're looking quite healthy. There's also a few weeds growing in there. And we did come back in July and did the maintenance and weeding. So we had a crew go in there and our group, the Little Forests Durham group, is there to help people identify potential weeds from, trees to make sure that we're not removing anything that we shouldn't be. Last year, we did another project in Whitby. This one was at Heber Down. And we were late getting this project kind of off the ground. So it was August by the time we got to the site prep. And this had to be the hottest morning in August. We had a dedicated group, I would say probably 35 to 40 people from Whitby come out and help us do the site preparation. Again, it was a lot of shoveling, a lot of wheelbarrows, but we got it done. Here we are on the planting day. That was in October of 2025. Even the mayor came out and planted a few trees, which was great to see. These are great community events. I kind of liken them to, we were all, I don't know, I guess I'm old enough to have learned these stories about, bees that used to be held back where a whole community would come together to build somebody's barn or, quilting bees. This is the same kind of thing, except we're coming together as a community to plant a forest. It's great to see. Here's Heber Down. So much snow that some of the snow fencing actually got blown down in January, but you can see all the trees are looking great and healthy. I haven't been up yet this spring to look at the site, but just to know. So I'm just going to go quickly through a few other projects that we did. We did 2 more in the township of Uxbridge last year, one adjacent to the first one at the fields of Uxbridge. We also did this, the photo here is of it's called the King Street Parquet. It's a small lot that had been contentious because I think the township wanted to sell it to a developer. The neighbors wanted to keep it as a little parquet. And it was finally agreed that we would put in some pocket forests. So rather than one large, 200 square meters is not large, one 200 square meter forest, we did 3 pocket forests, which were smaller. Still the same number of trees in total. We planted 600. This is a mini forest that I did for a lady who lives in Whitby. She had wanted one on her front yard. I happen to know her. She's an acquaintance from the Brooklyn Whitby Garden Club. So I designed a little forest under 2 mature linden trees in her garden. And I think Cloca provided the plants and actually came in with their SNAP team to plant them. So that's Emmy in front of her little forest. So here's what's coming up in 2026. We're going to be working again in the Westland area in Whitby in Central Park, partnering with Cloca, the town of Whitby, and both of the Rotary clubs in Whitby. We have already set our site prep and planting dates. And this project is going to be part of the Cloca SNAP program because Westland is their SNAP neighborhood. We have the first little forest in the city of Oshawa. We've selected a site, a preferred site. It has a very low tree equity score. It's up in the northeast quadrant of the city, kind of north of Taunton, just slightly west of, I should say northwest, no, northeast, slightly west of Harmony Road. New builds, a lot of new houses. Of course, there's boulevard planting trees, but there's very little else in terms of natural tree coverage. So it's a great site for a little forest. This is another wonderful quote from the foreword for Hannah's book. They can be done by everyone everywhere. So that's me done.
So
And
I'm calling this presentation Growing the Mini Forest Movement in Canada, because I work with Green Communities Canada, and I'll share some stats with you later on about how many mini forests we have supported since 2023, and that number is large. So we're going to talk a little bit about us at Green Communities Canada, a little bit, actually we'll skip over what the mini forest is. We'll provide some highlights and summary data from mini forests across Canada. I'll summarize the speed of change research by the University of British Columbia in partnership with us, and some resources and events through us. So we are a national environmental nonprofit organization, and we support people and communities most affected by climate change to prepare and adapt to current and future impacts. So we do this by supporting grassroots organizations across the country, building local capacity to accelerate ambitious climate solutions. And in 2024, we did support Little Forests Durham and the Rotary Club directly with that mini forest at the Fields of Uxbridge. We work with over 100 members and partners across Canada as a network, a funder of up to $15,000 for mini forest projects, among other types of green infrastructure. We serve as a backbone to these organizations, and we help to accelerate direct climate action. And we have programs in green infrastructure, which is what I work in. We also have programs in sustainable mobility for active transportation to schools, for example, and we have programs in energy conservation. We have a number of funders and supporters, including, I'll highlight Trees for Life that we are working with this year and last year to co-fund. We're up to 36 projects between 2025 and 2026. So that's been really exciting for us to increase the number of projects that we can support annually. So I won't spend too much time on this slide, as Ingrid covered a lot of this, but there are lots and lots of benefits of mini forests. For example, increasing biodiversity and urban canopy cover, increasing physical and mental health for the people using and around the mini forests, carbon sequestration, they're low maintenance and fast growing, and they help to absorb stormwater. For the projects that we support, we always ask for the mini forest sites to be at least 100 meters squared, or it could be a couple of sites or more sites totaling 100 meters squared with 300 or more trees and shrubs. These sites do not need to be walked through. So there doesn't need to be a pathway or anything. They can just be a big blob of mini forest, or they can be, smaller pockets of forests. We always support projects that are on public or publicly accessible land that must be accessible for maintenance and supported by a community. We look for sites that have a low risk of soil contamination and where they'll provide benefits in areas of need for green space, ideally serving underserved communities, and where they are able to install permanent signage. Now I'm going to highlight a number of different projects that we have supported across Canada, starting from the West Coast, and we'll be finishing up in New Brunswick. So just bear with me. I'm not going to go over all the details of each project, but you'll see that there are a number of stats for each one. So in 2024, we supported Snamith First Nation in the Nanaimo region on Vancouver Island, and over 40 volunteers were engaged with over 1,000 plants at a traditional or transitional housing site. Then we have Richmond, BC, who we supported between 2023 and 2025 in partnership with Trees for Life in 2025. And they actually just planted their 10th mini forest today for Earth Day. That was directly through Trees for Life this year. So very exciting to see a number of those going in Richmond, and they have planted over 1,800 plants, engaging 180 volunteers. We also have Langley, BC, who we supported from 2023 and 2025 with 448 plants. We have Calgary, Alberta from 2023 until this year, so over 3 years. And we don't have any stats yet for this year, but we do have 3 different sites where they've installed over 400 meters squared of new mini forest sites. We have St. Thomas, Ontario, which was 2025 at 100 meters squared with 400 plants. We have Hamilton, Ontario, who we supported in 2023 and 2024 with 5,400 plants and over 200 volunteers. We have Nayashiniming, Ontario, which is the Bruce County region. And in 2024, we supported the First Nation community to install 100 meter squared mini forest. We have Guelph, Ontario, who we supported in 2023, and we will be supporting them again this year. And in 2023, it was a 500 meter square site with over 200 volunteers. As Ingrid mentioned, these can be really popular public events and over 1,200 plants. We have Sherbrooke, Quebec, with Rêve Nourricier as that organization, and we will be supporting them again this year for a mini forest. And in 2023, 2025, they planted over 1,000 plants. We have St. John, New Brunswick, who we supported in 2024 and again this year. And in 2024, they put in 100 meters squared mini forest. We also have Moncton, New Brunswick, with Fundy Biosphere Region at a decommissioned landfill site. And then we supported them over 2 years in 2023 and 2025. So lots and lots of very exciting projects across the country. And we don't have a lot of data because the earliest mini forests that we know about in Canada started in Kingston in 2021. So although mini forests have been installed all over the world, starting in the 1970s, this movement is relatively new in Canada. That being said, we are supportive of research to look at the mini forest method in the Canadian context. And we do have some preliminary soil health data, thanks to our work with Vineland Research and Innovation in Hamilton, that found that the soil health just in an amended site in preparation for a mini forest already enhanced the soil health. And then once those trees were planted, that further enhanced the health of the soil. We also have some data, which isn't on here yet, from 2025 at 5 different sites across Canada that basically showed the same thing, that soil health, microbial activity, nutrient content of the soil increased with the added amendments. And a lot of the urban soils that we see across the country are degraded. So really that amendment piece before the planting makes a huge difference to help ensure the longevity of those trees. And here's some overall data. So from 2023 to 2025, we've supported 45 mini forests across 23 communities in 5 different provinces. And this year, 2026, we are supporting another 15. So that number will go up to 60 across Canada by the end of this year. And that will be over 9 provinces, it turns out. So in total, that's 10,000 meters squared of combined site size, 3,500 volunteers engaged, over 50% of whom were youth, over 12,000 trees planted, and 26,000 total plants. So that's a huge amount of impact at scale across the country. In our work with the Network of Nature, which is a collaborative including Canadian Geographic, Dugan Ecology, Wilder Climate Solutions, we also produced a professional mini forest coordinator training course, which I'll provide the link to later on. And we have a monthly mini forest community of practice that we run that Little Forests Durham is part of, where we talk about a variety of topics related to mini forest design, installation, and maintenance. We have a number of cool signs that I'm just going to show you very quickly. There's only 3, but I found these ones are particularly beautiful and engaging, so I like to use these as good examples. This one is from Kingston, Ontario, from Little Forest Kingston, and I love the inclusion of details about the method, some of the species that are supported by the mini forest, a little bit of data about what was planted. We have this one from Credit Valley Conservation in Georgetown that features, again, the species that are expected to be supported by the mini forest site. And then we have this one from the city of St. Thomas that I find to be particularly eye-catching with all that color. And finally, I'm going to talk very briefly about the research that we conducted in partnership with the University of British Columbia called the Seeds of Change, Cultivating Mini Forests Across Canada report. So this looked at 15 different sites across Canada, 10 of which were in Ontario, but also Quebec, New Brunswick, Alberta, and BC. And the methodologies included a review of policies, narrative and impact reports that we require from our partners when they work with us. There were also surveys of these mini forest partners using qualitative and quantitative analysis. And then there were interviews with partners and a thematic review. So these were the identified benefits of mini forests to those partners, which were increased biodiversity with presence of pollinators, arachnids, and other invertebrates, and a reduced presence of invasive or unwanted species. The forest health and growth showed accelerated growth rates, which is what we have heard around the world to be a benefit, with high survival rates and resilience. These sites were also great for youth, environmental education, and hands-on learning, and were great, as Ingrid mentioned, for community building and empowerment, including increased access and connection to nature, empowering individuals to make a difference through action, and creating a community hub. And these are a couple of quotes that were highlighted in the report that I think are really meaningful. One being, people have such a good feeling when they're actually planting the forest, like there is a sense of joyousness as people plant. The other one is, I would suggest that this first season is probably equivalent to about 3 seasons compared to our more traditional planting approach. The challenges and lessons learned through the research included operational related to herbivores such as deer or rabbits, weeds growing in these sites, and watering challenges, especially in times of drought, or in the case of Calgary, Alberta, when there are issues with irrigation, with water mains breaking, and so on. It was also noted that mini forests are expensive because of the need for the soil amendments and site preparation and the dense planting, so the increased number of plants, but they are a pilot to learn from. And one thing we hear very, very often for these projects that we support is that there's the funding for planting, but not for stewardship. And with Green Communities Canada, we hear this all the time for green infrastructure sites. So we actually have another program called the Thriving Microgrants, which provides up to $5,000 for ongoing maintenance for sites. So we have 12 of those projects that will be happening this year, including for mini forest maintenance, but also for other green infrastructure projects. And it was noted that long-term alliances and protection are beneficial for mini forests, that maintenance capacity is an ongoing need, and there needs to be monitoring systems in place to see if the benefits are actually panning out that we expect. And there are a number of policy levers related to mini forests. So these can help with tree species diversity, canopy, and green space targets. The 330-300 rule, whereby for tree equity reasons, the goal is that every Canadian can see 3 trees from their house, have 30% canopy cover, and be within 300 meters of a local green space area. Also, Mini forests can be great for green space tax initiatives, for carbon sequestration initiatives, urban heat mitigation, public health benefits, and tree planting incentives. They are great for community engagement and education and community-led greening, and can support a whole number of policies and plans, including tree protection bylaws, naturalization strategies, urban tree inventories, and so on. So I will link to this report, which is publicly available on our website in both English and in French. And some resources that we can provide for anyone who is interested in learning more include the grants that I mentioned of up to $15,000 for mini forest projects and other types of green infrastructure. Usually our intake for that is in the fall, and usually the deadline is around December 1st for funding to be implemented the next year. So this year we're funding a total of 32 projects, and 15 of those are mini forests. And then we also have our Thriving Microgrant program, which I mentioned, providing up to $5,000 for green infrastructure maintenance. And we have 12 of those happening this year. We also have a mini forest community of practice meeting that happens the third Thursday of the month, the next one being May 21st, the day before World Biodiversity Day. And that is at 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. We also have a free online mini forest course, which I will link to. And we have a webinar series called Voices for Action, which each of those webinars is recorded. And we did a mini forest one in early 2025. So I can provide a link to that as well. There is a mini forest hub that I would invite you to check out, and I will link to that, where mini forests across Canada can be logged, including monitoring data. And the Network of Nature website and collaborative is something that we are part of that has a native species database and a find a nursery function for native species. And thanks so much, everyone, for all of your attention. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Feel free to email me if you'd like to be part of that mini forest community of practice.
All right. Thank you so much, Jen and Ingrid. Wonderful presentations. Thank you so much. We'll go to, there was a question earlier on for Ingrid about, are they looking for more volunteers? So we'll start with that.
Absolutely. If you want to volunteer with Little Forests Durham, just go to our website, littleforestsdurham.ca. There's an email link on there. You can just fire out an email with your contact information. We'll add you to our volunteer list. And we do an email blast when we have one of our events coming up to everyone who has signed up to volunteer with us. And I think we also included on the slides the ones that we have coming up. So we have 2 coming up this year in Whitby, which I talked about, one in Windsor Bay Park. On Saturday, June 6th is the site prep. We've got another one, Central Park in Westland area on, I'm going to get this one wrong, June 13th, I think. And no, maybe it's the other, June 20th. June 13th in Uxbridge. And May 30th, we're actually doing one. I live in Clarington. We're doing a project here in Clarington at the new South Bowmanville Recreation Complex adjacent to some sports fields there. We're doing the first of what we hope will be several mini forests here in Clarington. So information will be on our Instagram and Facebook pages, and you can go to our website and sign up to be a volunteer. We'd love to have you join us.
Perfect. Thank you. Earlier on for Ingrid about where you source your material from.
Okay, that's a good question. There are a number of native plant nurseries now in Ontario, and a few that specialize just in woody species. The 2 that we have been using, Cloak also uses, there's one here in Pontypool called Pine Needle Farms, but they do mostly bare root stuff, and we prefer with our volunteers to use potted stock, so 1-gallon pots. We source ours from 2 wholesale nurseries that are in kind of the Hamilton, Ancaster area. One's called Verbinens and the other one is called Hortico. But I did source some trees from a small native plant nursery just north of Trenton last year called Natural Themes. They're in Frankfurt, Ontario, and they have really great selection of trees and native trees and shrubs as well. So we're really fortunate that there is a lot, because there's been a lot more interest in native trees, we have a lot more native plant nurseries. So it's been really good to work with those nurseries.
That's excellent. I'm glad to hear that there's more popping up. All right. There was another question that it looks like Ingrid responded to, but we'll just read it out regardless.
Yeah.
What the process would be like to get a site selected for a little forest, particularly in Durham Region. So I'll let you read your response.
Yeah, so I mean, basically it is, we have to work with the municipalities because the land that and one of the things that, is part of our goals and objectives is to make sure that the little forests that we plant are all on publicly accessible land. So the municipalities own that land or conservation areas. So in the case of Heber Down last year, we worked with Cloca. But we would go approach the municipality, usually the park staff, and ask them if they have a park within their, municipal boundaries that would benefit from having a mini forest. That's essentially the process that I used with Oshawa. When I first asked the question back in 2024, they said no, they didn't have any budget. But I think they've kind of seen the success of the plantings that we've done in other communities. And they were happy to start working with us on a project this year. So it starts with the municipality because essentially they own and control the land, and it's important to start the discussion with them and then start engaging with the community groups who want to participate in that project.
Excellent. And there was a follow-up to that. Bob was just wondering if a citizen had an idea of a potential site, would it be best to go to Little Forests Durham yourself, or would it be best to go to the municipality with the idea?
You could certainly contact us if you wanted to, but I always think it's better if the citizens of a municipality are the ones bugging the municipality to plant a little forest, because that has more clout than me coming to them and saying, would you like to do a little forest? Because then, it's easy for them to just say, no, sorry, we don't have the budget for it, blah, blah, blah. But if citizens start asking, if they, keep saying, hey, look at all the benefits, look at what's been, what's going on around the world, then I think that has a lot more weight, right?
Excellent. So you heard it, folks. Start bugging your city councilors.
Yeah.
All right. We've got another question from Christine. Has the mini forest method influenced other tree planting efforts like those done by the Scouts or other community groups, like soil prep, for example?
I'm not aware, because I know LEAF also does a lot of tree planting projects around the area, but a lot of those groups use what is a more traditional tree planting methodology, which is basically, dig a hole in the ground, stick a tree in it, cover it up, and place the next one 6 feet to 2 meters away, right? I don't know if Jen's aware of any changes happening to traditional tree planting. Jenn?
Yeah, what I find really exciting is in partnership with the City of Guelph, they have really been learning from the mini forest method and from their 2023 mini forest. So even when they're not able to plant a full 100-meter square new mini forest site, they are using parts of the technique to improve urban tree planting. So what they've started doing is denser planting in community, so native species that are planted closer together to mimic how they would grow in nature. And even adding soil amendments where they wouldn't normally do that for conventional tree planting. They're recognizing the importance of increasing soil health to help with the survival and well-being of those plants in the long term. So pretty exciting. And I'm hoping City of St. Thomas is really excited about mini forests as well. They're planting a mega mini forest this year. So I can see that the learning from this is really going
Yeah,
to be spreading.
yeah. Yeah, I think here in Durham region, we haven't done enough yet that it's changing, but having conversations with forestry people, you can kind of see the light bulbs going on a bit, right? Which I think is good. So that's a good answer, Jen.
Awesome. Next question is from Alyssa. Can mini forests help remediate soil that has been contaminated, or is it more effective to do the amendments strategy?
I can take this
Oh,
one on
yeah,
if you
you
want
take
to.
that one, Jen, because I
Yeah.
don't know.
Um, so there's sort of three methods of site preparation that we talk about in our mini forest course. The first method is the full Miyawaki excavation, and we don't see this happening very often, and we actually don't recommend it
Mhm.
because our soil has horizons and there are lots of microorganisms. There's these layers. We don't really want to disrupt soil structure. But if you were to use that full excavation and the soil was heavily contaminated, very degraded, you might consider that. So you could remove up to a meter in depth and replace with new soil. That, as you can imagine, is costly with excavation. That's costly to bring in new materials, and it's very disruptive to the soil. So we don't recommend that. You can also do an excavation that's not as deep and add in those amendments, or the lasagna method is the most common one that we see. Um, I'm hoping I answered that question adequately. We do find that urban soils are degraded and that these amendments are really helpful. But like I mentioned, we don't see that full excavation too commonly.
So I just have one experience that I can talk to because I volunteered with Little Forests in Kingston. And I don't know if you're aware of this. They did a planting, Jen, adjacent to um, a senior citizen center. I was working with Nathan. And they did soil samples and they found that there were a lot of metals in the soil. And so they did have to do some excavation and remediation of the soil. It was expensive, but the city paid for it because they had already promised that they could have the land for a mini forest. And I'm not sure. And so, what one of the other things they had decided because they were planning a food forest on this site was that they were no longer going to do that because of the heavy metal contamination. So they just chose to put in trees. And my understanding is that trees are very good at kind of isolating, metals and contaminants in the soil. They don't really, penetrate up into the tree, and it's a way of actually doing soil remediation is planting trees. So hopefully over time, it will help to improve the soil at that site.
Excellent. Thank you for those wonderful answers. We've got still plenty of time, so we'll go to the next question. From Julia, is wondering about the considerations towards green gentrification. She says that she knows that sometimes areas that have green infrastructure added, the prices of housing or rentals increase in the area, and then people who are supposed to benefit from these projects are priced out.
That's a great question. I was
Mm.
actually just looking at, and I can link this in the chat. Tree Canada has a tool that looks at the impacts of green gentrification with projects. So I would really encourage you to check that out. And Nature Canada has a really good report about tree equity. So I can try to find that and link that in the chat. It's also available in our mini forest course. But certainly, green gentrification is a concern. So if you're working in an area where people have lower incomes or are newcomers to Canada or have some other level of historical and present discrimination, I think it's really important to work with the community and ideally for it to be community-led for these initiatives. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good point.
again, Little Forest Kingston, I think, they're kind of our big sister organization. We took the ideas from them, but they've been leading the way on really getting involved in social housing complexes for their mini forest projects in Kingston. Very seriously looking at areas that have a greater economic need, lower tree equity. I don't know that there's been enough evidence yet to suggest that that's gentrifying those neighborhoods and therefore driving the price of housing up. But I know that they're very focused on making sure that their mini forest projects are also helping those areas of the city where they have low tree equity.
That's great. Glad to hear it. The next question is from Zoe, and it's for Jenn. You mentioned grasses were planted in Hamilton. She's wondering what kind.
Grass is in Hamilton. I'm like, did I say that?
Yeah, I think it said that there were some herbaceous plants that went into that one. So that
Oh,
was interesting for me as well. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess what I could share from that is, again, what we're hearing from the city of Guelph and other partners is that the understory layer of our natural forests is also important to replicate when we're doing the mini forest method. So the city of Guelph particularly loves wild strawberry because it has this tendency to take over the understory, and that can really help with outcompeting weeds and undesired species. And then, of course, as the trees get bigger, they will help to shade that out. I can look up the tree species list from the city of Hamilton if that would be helpful, but that would take me a little bit of time.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what grass, because grasses are typically sun-loving plants, and to put those in a mini for, I would assume that they would be putting those around the edges of the planting itself as opposed to into the interior of it, unless they're, sedges maybe, because sedge would definitely grow in under the shade of trees. So we'll have to go look that up.
Sounds good. Next question is for Jenn from Alyssa. What unique things are groups across Canada doing to make their little forests their own and the best fit possible for their community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, something that I'm kind of excited about in Calgary with Calgary Climate Hub is that they have started iNaturalist projects for their mini forests. And we did have a training in our mini forest community of practice on April 16th about iNaturalist for biodiversity monitoring. So that can be really fun for community science projects, for engaging kids, even teenagers who might be on their phones all the time. It's actually a great way to incorporate tech while also being out in nature because iNaturalist enables you to identify species by a photo or also by an audio recording. So Calgary Climate Hub is doing that. I think that's really cool and exciting. I think the work in Guelph that they're doing to incorporate the denser planting, even in more conventional sites, and the soil amendment piece is pretty cool. So those are a couple examples that come to mind.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question is from Pauline. If you were invited to put a mini forest in the grounds of a public institution, so a university, college, hospital, would you consider doing that, or does it have to be municipally owned land?
No, we would absolutely consider that. There is no reason to eliminate. I mean, those are public institutions. So we would have to have the permission of whoever owns that particular facility. And I can say one of the projects that I didn't put on my list, but we've just recently had a meeting and we're now in discussion with the Durham Region headquarters staff. So they own a building at the corner of Garden Rossland Road in Whitby. And we actually had approached them and said, would they be interested in planting a mini forest on the site of Durham Region headquarters? And so we're going to have a meeting with them next month and actually discuss that. So it's public in the sense that it's Durham Region headquarters, but it's the grounds of a public institution, right? So yes, we would definitely do that. I mean, if Ontario Tech University wants to come and I've asked them before if they would like to do a mini forest on their grounds, we would be happy to work with them.
And I can say that there are mini forests at Carleton University and the University of Ottawa that are brand new from 2025. And we see lots of mini forests going in school grounds, including, I want to say, several examples in Peterborough, Ontario, but also Eastview Public School in Toronto will be planting a mini forest in May. So yeah, it doesn't have to be municipal land necessarily.
I'm surprised the University of Guelph doesn't have one.
Not yet. I'm sure they'll have one soon.
I'm sure they must do. And what's interesting, if you look at it from a worldwide perspective, the movement in the Netherlands, and I can't remember the name of the organization that runs their mini forest program in the Netherlands, they initially started planting all of their mini forests on daycare and public school properties. And it's the kids that are coming, helping with the planting, of course, with their families, but also doing the monitoring. And that citizen science data is being fed into the research program at the University of Wageningen. So that's an example of where schools are, a perfect place to involve kids and get mini forests planted.
Excellent. That actually leads perfectly into the next question from Michael, who noticed the upcoming Little Forest project in Northeast Oshawa is in close proximity to a school. He wonders if there are any plans to involve students in the project or future projects.
I'm still waiting to hear from the city of Oshawa that is the preferred location. But I'm waiting for the approvals to wend their way through the various departments at the municipality, and we have not yet done a site visit. But I did look it up on my map, and I did notice that there was a public school there, and so we would certainly want to engage with the students if we could, and have the school students come over and participate in both the site preparation and the planting. So we typically try and fit them in June and October, November timeframe. So it's perfect. And I know that Patricia Lowe from Cloca, who's running the SNAP program in the in Westland neighborhood in Whitby, is engaging with, there's two public schools. I think one's a public and one's a Catholic school in the neighborhood where we will be planting. And we are engaging with the schools that are there to get the kids to come in. I think they're also doing some pollinator gardens on the school property. That's all part of the SNAP program. So definitely getting school kids involved is important, and we would definitely reach out to them for this. Thank you for the question.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. I think we've got time for one more question. So this question is from Christine, and it says, have any Indigenous communities planted mini forests? Does the technique fit with Indigenous knowledge approaches and practices? and the grouping of different species to support each other reminds her of the Three Sisters?
That's a great question. There are definitely two First Nation-led mini forests. One is in Bruce County, Ontario, and that one was planted last year. And then we have Snamith First Nation who planted one in 2023, I believe, or 2024. So definitely, First Nations are engaged. I don't know too much about Indigenous knowledge myself, but I would think the understanding that we all live in community, including plants, would apply in this case. And that to me does seem based in our connection with nature and with the environment. The idea that you wouldn't take a baby and put a baby in a corner and leave them by themselves and expect them to thrive. But yet we do that often with urban tree planting. We plant trees 10 feet apart and we don't really amend the soil very much. We might give them some mulch, might give them some water on occasion, but for the most part, they're left to fend for themselves, which is why we see a lot of urban trees don't live very long. They're susceptible to pollution, they're isolated, whereas the mini forest method replicates what happens in nature with an understanding that we all need community to thrive, and plants are included in that.
Before we start with that, though, thank you again to Ingrid and Jenn for this awesome, inspiring, informative presentation. And thank you to everyone who shared a question in the chat. And we are also grateful to the Whitby Sustainability Advisory Committee and Whitby staff for helping out with this event and helping us develop it. If you want to rewatch the presentation or recommend it to a friend, we will be posting it soon on the Climate Justice Durham YouTube channel, which can be found on our website. And we will also be sending out an email to everyone who registered with that link, along with some of the links mentioned during the presentation, which will also be in there. And so a number of climate events are coming up soon. So in keeping with our tree theme tonight, I will go with what's on the slides because it's in a different order on my notes. So there will be another learning circle. The date and time will be confirmed. Just keep an eye on our socials and the website for that information. There are different times in different locations on the April 25th of protests against certain provincial politics. There's a link there on that to find where you want to go in Durham. There is also a Durham Region Energy Expo and Electric Vehicle Expo at May 2nd from 10 to 3. It's a drop-in at the Durham Regional Headquarters. You can register on that link there. We do the next slide. Here's a Town of Whitby upcoming events. There's going to be Home Energy Retrofit Orientation Workshop on May 19th from 6:30 to 8:30. That one's online on Teams. And then on World Bee Day, they'll be exploring the world of wild bees event at May 23rd, 2:30 to 3:30 at the library, Central Library. We also have the Leaf Bee Tree Tour on June 20th from 9 to 11 a.m. at Collins Central Park. Is there another slide? Okay. And we have much information about upcoming forest planting. Feel free to take a picture of this. And also I suspect that much of it can be found on the Little Forests Durham site, but the Clarington Mini Forest site prep will be May 30th from 8:30 to 12:30. The Windsor Bay Park Pocket Forest site prep on June 6th from 9 to 12. The Central Park Mini Forest site prep on June 20th from 9 to 2. The Uxbridge Ewan Trail Mini Forest site prep on June 13th from 9 to 12. And Little Forests Durham will have information on their social media for more details as the dates get closer to that. Is there another slide of events? Okay, I do have a couple more. We also have a community tree planting event coming up on April 25th at Fallingbrook Park, just north of Roslyn Road in Whitby from 1 to 3. And then May 3rd from 1 to 3, a similar event will be held at Conlin Meadows in Oshawa. So you can find details of both of these on the yourleaf.org website. There are so many things. This is very exciting. And yeah, those are so many options of events for folks to get involved in. On behalf of Climate Justice Durham, the Whitby Sustainability Advisory Committee, Little Forests Durham, Green Communities Canada, all of us are super grateful for everyone who came out on this lovely Earth Day to learn about Little Forests with us. And thanks for coming. And we hope to see you out in the community planting trees and at future learning circles and wherever and whenever we are doing good and building climate resilience in Durham.